Let's see. I was accepted to all the UCs except for LA and Berkeley. I was also accepted into University of Michigan, which is where I'm going. Georgia Tech, University of Alabama for full ride. University of Maryland, College Park, and then the five state schools Cal State schools I applied to, which were San Jose State, Long Beach, Chico, Cal Poly Pomona, and Cal Poly SLO. I think I imagined the hardest part of the essay writing process to just be the sheer amount of essays I had to write. Because I think I applied to 12 schools, if you count the UCs as one school. I was so overwhelmed with the number of essays that I didn't even consider how hard writing the essays was going to be. I just remember there were so many days when I was trying to write the essays when I would just sit at a coffee shop and just stare at a blank laptop for hours because I knew where to start. Leslie was really great about giving me some good ideas, but it was just pretty intimidating to try to fit my whole life into 500 words. Yeah. So the longest part of the essay writing process was probably just it was between the first draft and the brainstorming. That part was just really hard for me to, I don't know, overcome that mental block. Leslie was really great about helping me brainstorm. So I think the hardest part was before writing college essays, I had never even once asked myself, who am I? I just kind of, oh, I want to do this, and then I do it. I don't really think about things. And so Leslie really made me question why I do everything I do. And so writing the essay was intimidating because I had no idea why I do some of the things I do, but it was really helpful to talk to her and her to say to me, "Yeah, I think, this area of your life is really big or bigger than you think it is, and I think you should, think about that more." So just leading me into right directions instead of talking about the 500 things I like, narrowing it down to the 5 to 10 things I like. I wouldn't consider myself a very private person or like secretive, but I think it was weird putting my thoughts onto paper and then having people read it. That was kind of weird. It was also hard writing about yourself or about myself because in some ways I felt like I was being over dramatic with my thoughts or being braggy or not explaining enough or there was a lot of like self-doubt. Uh, Probably writing the first draft, honestly. Once I got over the mental hurdle and I just wrote down one sentence, the worst garbage would come out of my mouth, like not even comprehensible, but it was really cool because I don't write in diaries. I don't do any sort of, I don't know, memoir writing. So it was cool to write about myself and not, you know, I don't know, some book I don't have any interest in. Yeah. Leslie just really warned me about how much I had to get done. So she was like, Dara, you really need to start writing your essays because they're due in a month. You kind of just have to forget all external thoughts and just write. And if it's bad, just know it'll get better. I think when I had come into this process, I didn't realize that every writer has their own voice. So for instance, I would read sample essays online or even just essays my peers were writing. Their essays seemed really formal and opposite of like colloquial. Oh, I pranced in the meadow by the creek and saw the sons of the rays of the sun. And I don't write like that at all. So I was really worried how the heck I was going to write essays like that. But I think what helped was I write a lot of my family's Christmas letters. Like, since I was a kid, I've always written like the annual letter that we send to all of our relatives. And I try to be as funny with bad grammar as possible. So I think I just try to carry that writing style into my college essays and hoped it kind of worked. Yeah, I think I just wasn't watching what I was saying. I was just kind of writing from not even thinking if it was going to sound intellectual. I was just writing because it was an interesting story to me or I thought it was funny. But it was hard because a lot of the times when Leslie read my essays, she would tell me it seems a little flippant or insensitive, like I wasn't trying to think. So it was hard to blend my original kind of sarcastic writing style to something that was actually introspective. I still wouldn't describe myself as adventurous, but I don't think I had realized there was such a dichotomy in the activities I do. I do computer science, woodworking, um, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'm all into the UFC, um, which are typically male-dominated activities. But then I've also competed in a beauty pageant, and I, you know, do my hair and makeup every day. And I love fashion. So to me, that was just, yeah, that's just what I do. So I think to actually think about why I do that or why I don't think about why I do that made me, oh, it's kind of cool that I'm not as basic as I thought I was going to be. Not that I think that's actually where Leslie was but very helpful. She created this spreadsheet, like an agenda of like essays I had to get done by certain dates, which was so helpful. I literally lived religiously off that schedule for half a year because it's hard remembering when the early deadlines for things are, and I literally checked the schedule like multiple times a day just to make sure I was on task. So that was really helpful. There were times towards November where I was slacking off, mainly because at that point I had applied to all my quote unquote safety and target schools, and it was just reach schools. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'm not getting into these reach schools anyway, so I don't really feel like writing these essays. But I think just having Leslie there to, one, remind me that deadlines do come and you don't want to ever regret not applying to a school. And then two, Leslie herself is really busy. Okay. So for example, let's say my University of Michigan essay was due December 15th. Even if I wanted to submit it like December 10th, I had to give Leslie more than a week to read it. Or it was the agenda she created as well as her schedule that made me pick up the pace because I wanted to be somewhat considerate of not piling 30 essays on her at once. It was definitely the schedule she created that was really helpful, and I was so proud whenever I finished an essay. I really like writing, but it was really hard to write about myself. And especially for such a pivotal moment, applying for college, that was really intimidating for me. So I was always really proud when I finished an essay or thought I finished an essay. But like I said earlier, I always felt this pressure that I have to explain my whole life into, a really small essay. So I think once I just became happy that I can just explain 90% of myself in an essay, I was really content with the final product. It was hard because the couple days after I would write an essay, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is the best essay I've ever written. And I was so happy with it. And then when you have to send that essays to more than just one school, you have to send it to like 5 more schools after that. Then that's when you kind of question, wait, let me make sure I did this essay right the way I want it to. Like my Common App essay, like at this very moment, I love that essay. I think it's one of the best essays I've ever written. I think because I was actually personally invested in it, rather than just trying to get a good grade on it or trying to use it to get into college. I really wanted to use this essay as a formal diary entry of my teenage years so that I could read it in 50 years from now and think, oh, that's how I thought back then. I just thought it would be cool to get down all my thoughts into an essay and see how I've changed over the years. Yeah, I just thought it would be like a good formal diary entry. Top of my head, there are 3 things this process helped me develop. First, it's being actually knowing what my writing style is, and then not letting self-doubt make me write in another style that I'm not comfortable with. 2, I think it really helped me become a better writer in terms of just adding more detail and not just kind of touching upon big ideas and getting to some fluffy idea. I think it really helped me. So, for instance, I was talking about like a website I was developing, and at the beginning, I was just talking about like, yeah, I did that, and that was like pretty cool, and that's why I love computer science. But then Leslie was like, no, you gotta add more detail. So I started to say like how I, changed the website. So I talked about, oh, I added music every time the tab was opened. I changed the white arrow cursor to a heart with sparkles around it. And I changed the background from like dark blue to, I don't know, rainbows or something. It's just being more descriptive because I think in real life I'm not that kind of person. I guess in some aspects it's helped me become less of a superficial person. Like I can be a little bit more introspective. I can think a little bit more about why I'm doing things, which I think is important, especially, at 18, self-discovery. Yeah. You live vicariously through your own words, basically. She was always really good at being both hands off and guiding. Then it was a good balance. You definitely drive the boat when you have to actually write the essay and then send it over to her. She's not gonna say, "Oh, hey, the deadline's in 2 days. Where's your essay?" You definitely have to remember that. You have to look at the schedule that you created together and send the essay over to her, which I think is good because having someone pester you about a deadline just makes you more anxious, I guess. And then she was really helpful. I think after she had read the essays, she's not just gonna shoot you an essay and say, "Good luck." There are comments that say, "Oh, why don't you do this? Think about this more." So yeah, she was definitely a little bit more hands-on right after I had sent her a draft. She had time to look it over. And also, I guess when I was at those mental blocks. And I don't know if her helping with the mental blocks was actually her physically saying, "Hey, deadline's in 3 days. Why don't you write about this?" It was just more the brainstorming we had done earlier and my knowledge that I had a deadline to meet. And so I guess I do remember us having a Skype call. Like, we had the Skype call. I had the block. I thought about the Skype call, and then I got over the block. So in the Skype call, we just talked about like major points of my life and then stories within those. So like judo, computer science, pageants. And then we had like stories for each. And so if I was having a block, I just told myself it's not the right essay I should write. And I just moved on to the next story. And whatever story I could write about was a story I stuck with. I feel like it was really key in more demonstrating my personality, especially because on paper I can look kind of, well, I think everybody just looks kind of meh, right? You start to see people as numbers, right? So I think the essays were really key in helping me portray my personality to the admissions readers. I think I am somewhat, bubbly and outgoing in real life. So I just really wanted to make sure as my essays hit those points rather than me seeming super analytical or uptight or anything. Well, I wanted to seem, but I also think my personality really is just more carefree and happy than, I don't know, than my resume depicted. I don't know if this even pertains to your book, but I took a lot of hard classes first semester of senior year, and I was so worried about getting good grades in those classes. I think I should have been more worried about learning in those classes, risking the bad grade for good college essays, because I had a really hard time balancing essays and schoolwork. Junior year, academics was my number one priority. There was like many nights I didn't eat dinner with my family or I don't know, hang out with friends because I just had to study. And so I think it was really hard for me to transition senior year from that hardcore academic school, 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 school. I have to get a 7.0 GPA to you can relax on the school, make sure you have good college essays. And so I overestimated how much time I was going to have second semester, which ended up not being too big of an issue because I just did a lot of my college essays during winter break, but that sucks, right? You want to be spending winter break with your family. I just kept telling myself, oh, college essays should be and are number one priority right now, but I was trying to get back into judo. I was trying to, because like, junior year I quit judo. I was trying to get this super high GPA and I just couldn't manage it all. Oh, I was also studying for the ACT. That sucked. Yeah, that really sucked. And then 2 weeks before I had my ACT, this is like A month before my UC essays were due, I went to a judo tournament. I got a concussion and I broke my left arm in the same 30-second match. And so that ruined my whole semester. My brain couldn't function. I missed like a week of school. My grades went down like 5-10%. And I think it's really important for students to remember that college essays are #1 priority because you have to get into a college for them to look at your first semester, GPA. And that also the grind really doesn't stop until like second semester senior year. I wanted to compete in a national judo tournament. I wanted to compete in states. I was training really, really hard, but you can't manage essays, school, and judo. So yeah, I wish I had been a little bit better at prioritizing. And then I wish I had been a little bit more open to trashing an essay idea and just moving on. Sometimes I just beat my head against the wall. I like this essay idea. I really want to write for this essay idea. And I would just try. And then I would have to look at the brainstorming that Leslie and I talked about earlier. And okay, it's not working for a reason. I have to move on. And leaving an essay that you spent blank amount of hours on to completely start over a week before the deadline is stressful. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna say this without reservation. Sorry, Leslie. I know it's her birthday today, but this is just the negative parts, not all the great positive. She's really expensive. And so a lot of the times when I had issues, I didn't want to turn to her. I had to ask myself, is this a $500 issue or not? So a lot of the process, which I think is good because it's probably good for independence and self-growth, I had to figure things out a little bit more myself because I didn't want to turn to her for every issue I ever had. And I knew my parents were going to kick my ass if the bill was so high. I think that was literally the main issue with Leslie. That was really it. Yeah. Don't label colleges as your target safety reach. Just apply to a big range of schools with some early deadlines, some later deadlines. A lot of my friends just applied to schools that were all due December 1st, and that was super stressful for them. Also, a lot of my friends didn't apply to a lot of schools because they told themselves, well, I think I'm going to get into this school, and I'd go to this school over that school. And they didn't get into any of their so-called safety schools, and now they have to go to a community college, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, my parents went to community college. But so Alabama has this thing where if you have a certain GPA and ACT score, not only are you automatically accepted, you automatically get a full ride. So I applied to Alabama in like September. And so getting into a school by like October, full ride, relieved a lot of stress. Just apply to schools you think you're like. Don't worry about the ranking or anything.